congrats to the OK team for organizing this very nice weekend. Thank you. Well, yes. I'm going to tell something about 23 centimeters EME. It looks like low-band EME nowadays. We had a lot of information on 47 gigahertz, which was very interesting. But I'm going to tell you something about my start and my journey on 23 cents. I started with moonbounce in 1986 on 2 meters. And then 1 year later, I built an array and started to become QFV on 70 centimeters in 1987. And via the 432 and above EME newsletter and the IMAC EME notes, I got very much interested in getting active on 23 centimeters as well. I have to switch it on. Well, a milestone in the history of 23 centimeters EME started in the United States. First QSO made on the 21st of June 1960 by the well-known Sam Harris and his group, and the IMAC group by Hank Brown and Bob Sutherland, all very famous call signs. And they really did a very nice job making a first QSO of the moon in 1960. In 1962, on the 12th of September, John F. Kennedy said, "We will go to the moon." And, well, it was a very big step that a group of radio amateurs were able to achieve a moon-bound QSO on 23 centimeters. So this was very, very special. The Sam Harris group used a 5.5 meter dish, 400 watts, and the IMAC group running a 2.3 meter dish and also 400 watts. Really great achievement. Well, when I started, that was in 1990, I had the opportunity to use the Wurtzbook Riese dish, that's in English Wurtzbook Giant, at our local radio observatory. And I started building in 1989, and I became QFV on 23 cents in 1990. It's a 7.5 meter dish with a, well, kind of a difficult FD of 0.23. So with some help of Barry, V4MA, and Hannes, OE5 JFL, we wrote letters to each other and we communicated about a good solution to illuminate this very deep dish, because 0.3 is really difficult. But we made it. I got a very nice a drawing from Barry, built that V4MA feed. At that time, I used screws as for a polarizer, and it turned out to work quite well. I was QFV 22 times, from 1990 to 1995, made 65 initials, 161 QSOs, 157 in CW, and 4 in SSB. My own echoes, and that was a, well, I was jumping around in the shack when I heard my first echo on 23 centimeters. With about 10 watts output, I heard my echoes coming back. I had experience on 2 meters and 70 centimeters, but well, this was a really great achievement. We were with a small group. On the right side, you see Ad Edelbroek. That was a radio astronomer who helped us to become QFV with this beautiful dish at the Simon Stevenhoeven Radio Observatory location. On the left side, you see Kees, PA3 Charlie Echo Delta. Next to him, it's me, as a young boy. And then Tom, PE1 IMK. And, well, we together built the setup. I started building in 1989 and finished it in 1990 for the first QSO. In the slide before, you saw a red arrow. Via that hatch, I turned up the dish to zenith, and via that hatch, I took out the screen. I could climb into the dish. So I used the surface of the dish to put the feed in. So it was a really, really, really very solid dish. I even have been activated the station during a very, very big storm. And there were no problems at all. You can see on the left two pictures, very solid construction. The Würzburg Riese dishes were developed by a Dutch engineering team in the early 30s. In 1934, from Telefunken, there was a group of very clever engineers who developed this dish. And they made a really great design. On the upper photo, you see a short article in our ham magazine in Electron. You can see that's the operating position, because the shack was behind the dish. And from my operating position, I could look through the window, and it was not cloudy. I could see the moon through the mesh of the dish. My homebrew 2x2C39 BA power amplifier, because in those days it wasn't very easy to make a good power. So I built a 2C39 PA, first with air cooling, but that didn't work. It was too unstable. So I saw some information in the 432 and above EME newsletter about a guy who made water cooling to the 2C39. So I did that immediately, and it turned out to work very, very smoothly. I could run between 175 and 225 watts output from this PA. Here are some QSL cards. The first QSO I ever made from Simon Stevin was with HB9 SV. Really beautiful and big signal. The OK1 KIR group, L, K2IH, Peter, G3 LTF. I hope Peter is watching. Hello to everybody at home. Dominique, HB9 BBD, with his small dish, 2.4 meters, but, well, good power. WB5 LUA, nowadays W5 LUA. Aldo, IK3 Charlie Oscar Juliet in 1994. Aldo standing beside his dish. And Giulio told me that during this period he was a small boy. You took the picture, great. And Ben SM6CKU. Well, among the first QSOs there was also Eric, OE9 ERC, OE9 XXI, Peter, SM2CEW, Howard, G4CCH, Hannes, of course, OE5 JFL, who always had a magnificent signal. So, in the early 90s, it was very usual to send the QSL card direct with one or two photos. I remember that Dominique sent 4 photos, 2 of his amplifier and 2 of his antenna. So that was great to have pictures and to have a nice view of somebody's equipment. Well, after 1995, I was QAT for some years. I had a very busy job and a young family, so I couldn't be active as much as I would be. So I was very pleased to be able to use the dish at the observatory. But, well, you all know we are EME lovers, and once the virus gets into you, it will never leave you. So I kept getting the 432 and above EME newsletters, and it was published that for the EME conference in Paris, there would be a special event, Tango Mike 8 Echo Mike Echo, by Jean-Jacques, F1EHN, and Hervé, and 2 other guys, very good engineers, very good operators, and they activated the Nancy reflector. And the Nancy reflector, that's really something special. But I really wanted to make a QSO of the moon with TM8 EME, but I didn't have any antenna. I wasn't QFE at that time. The only antenna I had in my garage was a 23-element Fox 9 Fox Tango. And I did some calculations, and I thought, well, I think it is possible to work TM8 EME with my 1.75 meter boom Yagi. Because the Nancy reflector, it has about the same diameter as a 95 meter dish. So there is quite a lot of gain on the other side. So I took out my 23 elements Yagi, took out my 2C39 water-cooled PA from the garage, my transverter, my transceiver, connected some cables, and on a table in the garden, I put up my Yagi. And there was a very short window for the TM8 EME guys. They were QFE for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they only had a window for 40 minutes. And they announced, no chats, make a QSO, and then we go to another one. So I waited 2 days, because I thought, well, with my antenna, I will be able to work them probably on Sunday, when the big guns are gone. So on Sunday, I was very, very excited, and did put it up in the garden. I had power, my preamplifier was working, everything was doing very fine. So when their moon window started, I heard them. So that was really, really exciting. I will never forget that. With my small antenna, to hear signals of the moon on 23 centimeters. And after that, their signal increased tremendously, and I only had to call twice. And they replied to my call, and we exchanged 529. That was in CW, no digital modes, and we had a fantastic QSO. And later, when I talked to Jean-Jacques, F1EHN, he told me, "You're the smallest station we ever worked." And also for them, it was really unbelievable that with my 1.75 meter boom Yagi and 150 watts, I had a QSO with them. So, as you see, you do not need much. to do EME. But, well, on the other hand, your QSO partner must have a very good antenna. So that's why Dan makes people so much, so often happy. There was another event, because the expeditions or special events is always a trigger to become QFE. And I heard about the Greenland expedition by the Danish group of very, very nice operators. The call sign Oscar X-ray 2 kilo. But I heard it quite late. I only had 5 weeks to build a complete station. But I really wanted to work them. There was no issue. I wanted to work. I wanted to have a QSO with Greenland, because it's probably an opportunity once in a lifetime. So I got a 1.8 meter dish from my good friend Frank, PA2M. Made it a little bit bigger, because I thought, well, I need a few dBs extra. 1 dB extra, a few dBs extra is, well, you have it as well. It's always going through your mind. Where can I find some extra tenths or some extra dBs? So I extended it to 2.5 meters. And I made a QSO. It was really easy. I built that setup to work Oscar X-ray 2 kilo, and then put it down. But after I worked OX2K, I heard so many stations. And I used that dish up to June 2011. So almost more than 10 years I have been using that extended 1.8 to 2.5 meter dish. The azimuth and elevation rotator was an camera rotator. On highways, you see cameras. And I got that rotator from a friend of mine because, well, as I said, I had only 5 weeks to build this station to become QFE of the moon. But I made the QSO, and it was even a first QSO ever between Holland and Greenland. Later on, I used this dish. It's a bit of a sidestep on 13 centimeters. I worked 2 stations on 13. I worked Eric, OE9 ESC, of course, and OE9 XXI with only 50 watts output. It was just a test, and it worked. So as Al Saturday also said, well, use your dish, go up in frequency, try, and you will see it will work. And it did on 13 cents. Well, my next step, and in 2011, I got a mesh dish from my very good friend Mark, Oscar November 5 Romeo Romeo. I refurbished it, and that was a big improvement. A new tower, OE5 JFL controller, because the old dish was manual. So next step was automatic controller. New tower, and we did put up this 3.7 mesh dish. You see Frank on top, my neighbor, my brother. We did a really great job. Here is how you see some details. I used this 3.7 meter dish from October 2011 up to February 2014. I was still using my homemade VE4 MA feed, which I used at the radio observatory in Hoeven. It worked perfectly in this dish as well. And then not only building on different antennas, but I also did quite a lot of building on power amplifiers. Life is too short for QIP, as you know, so every time my intention was, when I go to a next power amplifier, I want to have 3 dB more. So I went from 200 to 400 watts, from 400 to 600, that's not 3 dB, 1.8, and now I have, since 2015, I have a bit more than 1 kW on 23 cents. I love very much water cooling. The only amplifier which I did not water cool was the 400 watts one, but the 2C39, the 8 times MRF 286 was water cooled, and the latest amplifier I have is also water cooled. Well, it never stops. You always want to get a better antenna. So I got a new dish. It went through a few countries. It went from Germany to Geert, PA3 Charlie Sierra Golf in the Netherlands. Then it went to Mark, ON5RR, and then it came back to Holland again, and that was a 3.7 meter solid Andrew. A really very great dish. Together with my neighbor Frank, we built a new frame, stainless steel frame with new actuator, counterweights, and encoders. And this was my 5th antenna. Well, going on holiday, and the EME virus never left me. So I thought, well, I heard about there were a lot of EME DX expeditions, and I wanted to do a small DX expedition myself as well. So I built a small station, and from that point on, I know now what it takes to do an expedition. It needs a lot of courage to get QRV. You need a lot of equipment. Giulio told us about his expedition, and well, this was only to Echo Alpha, to Spain, and I was QRV from Calonge, northwest Spain, with a 67 element Yagi. So sometimes people ask, what do I need to do EME? Well, I say, you can use a 23 element F9 FT. I can prove it, I made a QSO. But you can also use a 67 element SHF Yagi. So I built it up, tested at home. That's very important. If you want to do any EME expedition, try it at home and then take it with you. So it was a holiday, so not a real expedition. I was QRV for a few days, and I made 35 QSOs. Okay, 35 QSOs, one in CW with Peter, G3 LTF. I was running horizontal polarized Yagi, 120 watts, and the famous G4 DDK preamp. Thank you, Sam. I even could hear the ON0 EME beacon. You see a screenshot of the waterfall. I had temperature protection by aluminum foil, so that was great. In 2018, I moved to a new QTH, Almkerk, and I became QRV again in 2019 with my 3.7 meter Andrew dish. Slewing drive, which we heard of it this morning. A very nice piece of equipment, very nice rotator. Well, working on DBs, I I extended my 3.7 meter dish to 4.5 with the help of John, PA7JB, and Hans, PE1CKK, who made some calculations, and John made the extension for me. I extended my dish up to 4.5 meters. It is not 100% finished yet, but I'm always experimenting and trying out, but it works. I can see a small improvement on 23 and 13 centimeters. Nowadays, I also have a new feed. Some fun facts. I have an adjustable feed support because I use my Andrew for 70 up to 3 centimeters. So I can vary the feeds to get the best performance. A very nice tool is the DB6NT moon noise and sun noise meter. I have made a laser alignment for my feed because with that kind of an adjustable feed support, you have to, well, try to get to be in the center as close as possible. So therefore, I have some laser alignment tools. Protection cover made of material which is used for trucks sail. I put it over the feet, and I have my 7th 8-inch coax running directly from my power amplifier up to the feet with just very small jumpers. So very low attenuation on the TX side. Well, this is a nice topic. The latest technology developed by Dutch Space Lab Center, and this is a really great improvement on gain, especially antenna gain. As I said, we are always looking for tenths or 1 dB extra gain, and the final test results are available. And well, you will be astonished. This is gain spray. A very special product. So this will give you the opportunity to do EME. It's available now, so if you want to have some, just send me an email. It also works for 47 gigahertz. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And any questions? No? Okay. Over there.
But Jack, you are too late with this because I know many stations which they are using special paint with the 5 dB gain.
Looking at the photograph of the 3.7 meter dish, did someone once cut it in half to transport it? And how well does it now work, having had that operation?
Yeah, the microphone is working. Well, it is originally fabricated in 2 parts. Yeah. There is a very small mesh between the 2 parts. So when you put it together, you see some very small mesh connecting it. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, in that case, thank you very much again. And now I'd like to invite G4 DDK with really interesting stuff about a new development on the very low noise amplifiers. So, it's yours. Back, forward, and the pointer. Okay?
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. Thank you and good morning. Can I also add my thanks to Zdeněk and the OK team for organising this. It seems to have been such a long time since we all last got together. I asked Zdeněk if I could have a few minutes just to update people on where I was with the VLNA preamplifiers. There seemed to have been some confusion due to me on what the situation is. I stopped last November selling, I didn't stop selling, I closed down DD kits because I was getting overwhelmed with requests for transverters, built preamplifiers and so on, and I couldn't get on with doing anything else. I don't run a company as such, it's just some assembly work in my workshop. I mentioned to Peter Blair, and Peter, by the way, says thank you last night for the awards, particularly to Al for the fun plaque, and he said thank you. I spoke to him and he said, oh, you can't just talk about where you are with the preamplifiers, you've got to say something a bit beyond that. So it grew into a slightly longer talk. The VLNA 23, I first took along to the Weinheim VHF meeting in 2007, and there was some interest in it. It was based upon the design by WD5AGO, Tommy and Al W5LUA. I wanted to see if I could improve the performance, and I thought the ATF 54143 in the back end would probably provide a good improvement, and that turned out to be the case. And speaking to Tommy at the time, he said, oh, they had thought about doing pretty much the same thing anyway. I had access to microwave office through the company that I was working with at the time, so I was able to, what I hoped was optimizing the back end of the preamplifier that I came up with. And then later on, Sergei, W3BP, came up with some even further improvements to design. The best one known, of course, is these very long source leads. There's lots and lots of feedback from that, but that had a very big improvement, made a very big improvement to the preamplifier. The situation is, I am still producing some kits. I have stock left, so I'm producing preamplifiers. I've probably still sold many tens since I closed down DD kits. I will continue to do so as long as I can get parts. So kits are still available. What I don't want to get is the situation where I have got dozens of these to build. I'm not a manufacturer. I produce kits, and then if you're not capable for whatever reason of putting one together, I will assemble it for you for a small price. And the small price is what keeps me in amateur radio. So they are still available. Okay? Now, after 14, actually almost 15 years of producing kits and building these up, and I estimate I've probably built nearly 500 of the devices up for people so far. It's inevitably resulted in a number of observations, recommendations, and that's what I wanted to cover this morning after Peter suggested I did something more. The first recommendation is if you're building a kit, I'm not going to say RTFM, but you know what I mean, read the instructions. One of the most common mistakes that I've found where I have had preamplifiers back and I've repaired them for people or sorted out problems is you really do need to be using a fine cord solder. 0.3 millimeter is ideal. You won't get too much of it on the pads and it'll make a good joint. The board itself comes from a British company called PCB Train. I've used them for years. and their boards are immersion silver plated, so you can use either leaded solder or unleaded. I still prefer to use leaded solder. If you're having a kit off me and you don't have any suitable solder, ask me. I can supply a length of this for you, certainly enough to build up the VLNA. Another problem, people usually find this problem after they've tried to put the board in the box. You do need, you don't want that. You do need to chamfer the corners and make cutouts here. That board actually goes in the opposite way round into the box, but it's to clear this overlap on these two corners. And this is not a perfect bend, so you need chamfering on the board itself. If you do that, the board will fit in very comfortably. It's the right size. After 14 years, the company has got the right size of board now. Or to be more precise, I've given them the correct dimensions now. Another question that comes up is, it's a tin plate box, it rusts, doesn't it? Well, what I do is I use this, not necessarily this particular brand, but conformal coating. You could probably use almost any form of lacquer, but this is particularly effective. And it also has one other very, very useful effect, is that when you spray the outside of the box, it's like glue. You can't get the lid off afterwards. But it is weatherproof. It will stop the outside of the box rusting. You don't need to spray the inside. You can spray the underside of the board, but don't spray on the components. It will have a slight detrimental effect as far as the RF performance is concerned. That's my solution to gain spray. Now this is an interesting one. On the VLNA 23, which is by far the most popular, and there's probably 7 out of every 10 kits and built-up units I provide is for 23 centimeters. The band is still pretty popular. There is a 3 3/4 turn coil L1 on the input, and the top turn of that coil here needs to be bent over the top of the input capacitor C1. People seem somewhat reluctant to actually bend it all the way over. It doesn't want to be in contact with it. The reason for doing that is it does provide a better match. It reduces the noise figure to whatever the noise figure is that you want to quote for the VLNA. I got fed up defending the figures that I measure. There is a sweet spot. There is absolutely no question of that. There is a sweet spot. If you've got a noise figure meter and you do that, you will see the gain just starts to go up. The noise figure comes down. There's a definite sweet spot there. We've talked about the extended source leads. They're 8 millimeters long, of which 1.6 millimeters goes into the board. I've seen a few returned units where people have tried to solder right on the top, so the leads have been too long. So it's 8 millimeters, but 1.6 millimeters is through the board. If you stand the board on something and put the wires through, and you feel the resistance at the far side, you've got them fully inserted. I use an absorber material. I've moved from using the original ARC material to a material made by a company called Mast. You've got 2 strips which are very important. This one should, on the 23 centimeter, overlap that coil, that printed line L3. There's another one here, and the purpose of these is that when you have these source leads, there is a tendency to oscillate, self-oscillate at about 6 gigahertz. This material has its maximum absorption in the 6 gigahertz region. That'll stop that stone dead. On the 23 centimeter version, there's some more absorber down the edge here. Note, I'm now recommending that you don't quite go to the end of the box. I'm not convinced it's completely necessary, but it doesn't stop it working, so if you're building one, do that. And then, of course, there's some absorber in the lid of the box. I'm always reluctant to build the VLNA 70s for people, and the reason is that the board is extended way below the frequency range it's meant to work at. But if you do want one, and you do want to build it up, and you don't want me to build it for you, note the orientation of these coils. This coil has been very carefully optimized so that the lowest noise figure occurs at about 432 megahertz plus or minus a few megahertz. And you'll get a good input return loss as well. Note here, absorber again, I actually prefer to put this absorber a little bit closer to that, I wouldn't call it a coil, it's a connecting wire more than anything else. And I don't use the ferrite beads anymore. I couldn't get the ones that I was using, stopped using them and found it didn't make any difference. On the 13 centimeter VLNA, it's important that that wire, input inductor L1, is 16 millimeters long. Not 17, not 15, 16. Otherwise, you'll move it up and down the band. If you want to do DSN at 2200 to 2300, by all means make it 17 millimeters. But for 2320, in fact, down to 2300, that's the right length. And that's just the standard 2.5 millimeter coil form, and it's just wound around that. I'm finding these days that I'm getting down to, on my system, indicated around 0.25 dB noise figure on 13 centimeters as well. And I've got quite a few guys like Scott Tilly and that who are using it for DSN, and they seem to like using it. There's about 27 dB of gain. You could be doing with perhaps a little bit more. That's limited by the ATF 154 ATF device, now the SAV device that came under a certain amount of criticism a few days ago. If you read a certain reflector, you'll know what I'm on about. If not, doesn't really matter. Now, I've not mentioned anything about the 9 centimeter one. There's a lot more to be said about that, but if you're interested in 9 centimeter one, you need probably to talk to me directly. The question I'm always being asked is, how do you power the VLNA? What's the best way to power it? Well, mine are powered over the coax, but you can apply anywhere between 10 and 20 volts, and the 20 volts is really limited by the capacitor across the input regulator. You need to leave a bit of a margin. Or you can feed via the coaxial cable, and if you do that, you can feed the isolation relay in parallel with it, and that allows you a simple method of just changing over between transmit and receive. But the current rating for that, you've got about 85 milliamps for the preamplifier, and then whatever your relay current is. Can I turn, or should I turn the preamplifier on and off between transmit and receive? I have seen no difference at all in my testing, and if you were at Venice and you saw my paper, you'll see the results. That paper is available online if anybody wants to have a look. But I've seen no difference between turning it off and leaving it on. I turned it off because I can turn the relay off at the same time. Makes for simplicity. And I haven't lost a preamplifier due to that yet. Should I say yet? Well. So if you're going to power feed over the coax, then this little coil here, which is for 23 or for 13, is 10 turns of the same wire that I use for L1 and L2. It's soldered with a very short lead directly onto the output connector. and then this end comes up and is soldered onto the input feed-through. There is a problem with doing that, a potential problem, and that is if you have test equipment connected here and you forget that you've got this internal choke and you power feed up here, you are going to stick nominally 12 volts or whatever back up into your test equipment. That may or may not be a problem. There's a fairly simple solution to this, and I forgot to add the slide, but if you take that wire, don't connect it onto the feed-through, but instead connect it to the anode end of the protection diode, and then make a connection from the feed-through to the cathode end, then you've effectively got the diode in series with the input choke, and it'll stop you back feeding current into the test equipment. So it's a fairly simple way around it. It does work, it's fairly foolproof. How well do they work? Well, I still prefer to use a noise figure meter with a 5 dB ENR head. All the preamplifiers that I produce have gone out having had that measurement. Measure cold sky to ground and see what you get. Sun noise, of course. Beacon. This is for people who've built one of these and saying, you know, how do I know that it's working okay? These are things you should do if you haven't got the noise figure meter. And of course, big known stations like Dan's that, you'll hear them anyway, but if you get a good signal, you're probably almost there. And then use VK3UM to check your results. Something which comes up time and time again is I don't get 12, 13 dB of sun noise. I'm dB, 2 dB short. Don't get paranoid about it. I've never seen the VK3UM results exactly. They always seem to come up a bit short, and it's probably down to an assumption that you've made about something about the antenna gain or whatever, spillover, ground noise, whatever. Don't become paranoid that you can't get the VK3UM results. Right, something else which I like to do, when I'm measuring noise, I like to use continuum mode. Up until now, I've used my 2313 SEM whatever system through my K3 out into an SDRIQ. SDRIQ then runs Motronics continuum mode, and I can get pretty repeatable results measuring noise rather than using a meter. I've used the meter on IF and that, but I live close to the Martlesham 23 SEM beacon. At less than 5 kilometers, it's a little bit loud, and you, with say a 2 megahertz wide noise amplifier and detector, you can't keep it out. You do start to see something from the beacon. With continuum mode, you can set the bandwidth down to much narrower than you would with a 2 megahertz wide 2 meter IF noise amplifier. You can add as much smoothing and FFT as you want, and you can get some pretty fair results. So I've been using that, and as it says there, not only does it allow you to make the measurement, but if you see that wildly oscillating, that noise wildly oscillating, you can be pretty sure you've got some instability or interference problem. So it's quite a good way of knowing what's going on that output. So this is irregularities generally show that there's some problem in the system. So I've mentioned the Motronics one with the SDRs, but just recently, a couple of years ago, I bought an IC 9700. I know they're popular with some of you guys. They're not the best rigs in the world for dynamic range, but for EME, they're actually quite good. But measuring noise in continuum mode with them has always caused me a problem. I know you can still use SpectraView's continuum mode via various routes. I've never been that successful. Just recently, SDR console Beta 3.2 has come out, And he's now introduced within that a continuum mode, a proper continuum mode. It still needs a little bit further development, but it works pretty well. So my IC9700 has got a PTRX 9700 IF output board in it. That's like sort of a modern version of G4HUP's PAT board. That comes out at the IF, so there's no AGC or anything in front of it. That I feed out into an RSP2 Pro, which happens to be one of the SDRs I've got. I run SDR Console 3.2 beta on there, and the results I get with that are pretty compatible with the results that I get using continuum mode in SpectraView. So if you're one of the people using a 9700 as an IF or directly on 23, this is a good way to measure the continuum noise. Something I forgot, I'll just go back because I know Charlie might well mention it, and that was about switching that relay, isolation relay in front of the preamplifier on and off. I do have a switch, so I can turn the relay off whilst the preamplifier's on and terminate the preamplifier in 50 ohms, and that becomes my sort of standard. I may have included a slide on it, I can't remember. Well, I never. There's my preamplifier on 23, okay, 1 DFC feed, isolation relay, 50 ohm termination, and no, my switch doesn't go all the way back to the shack so I can turn it on and off remotely. I have to go out to the dish, but I can switch that relay off and have this terminated in 50 ohms and get a reference reading. This is the continuum mode in SDR Console, nice and colorful. And one of the things you're going to do with the preamplifier, is when you fire it up for the first time, you should see a decent increase in noise level. I've had 1 or 2 customers say, well, I turn the preamplifier on and I can hear the noise goes up. Well, how much does it go up by? Well, I don't know, it goes up. In my case, it goes up by a whacking 23 dB. Okay, dynamic range is gone, but I don't have the beacon to worry about in the narrow bandwidth here, and that works absolutely fine for me. So that's the IC9700, the IF board, RSP2 Pro, SDR Console in continuum mode. One of the problems, I think, with continuum mode in this one at the moment is that you don't be able to set these sensitivities arbitrarily. If you set to a small dynamic range that you want to look at, then you go down to 0.1 dB or so, but you want to maybe be able to set it even lower than that. Here's my sun noise, the K3, SDRIQ and SpectraView. I can't remember offhand what solar flux was at the time, but that was the difference, cold sky to sun. A fairly standard plot. We've seen that a few times here. Here's the same thing using continuum mode in SDR Console. The two agree. Whoops, not that one. Right. For the moment, hey, since I'm producing less VLNAs, I can actually do some radio. So I've been back playing 10G again. It's only taken 7 years so far to get to this stage. I had hoped to have my first QSO before I came here, and I didn't. But that's my sun noise measured a few days ago. I think the solar flux was up about 112, something like that. 12 dB. So I'm fairly pleased with that. That's off the 2.3 meter dish. That was on 23. This is, was it? Yeah, that was sun noise. This is moon noise. The moon was quite a distance away last week when this was measured. So I've only seen 0.9, but I've seen marginally over 1 dB. That bump there is where I move the dish, and actually the main lobe saw a bit of a tree. The moon last week's a fairly low declination, as you Northern Hemisphere guys know. And so that little bump was down to a tree or something. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I will still see a few orders for VLNA kits from you. Not too many orders for built ones, though, please. I'd like to continue with the 10G. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this very interesting stuff. Any questions? Here?
Ingolf, just a second.
Thanks, Anne. Very interesting. Are you doing any feedback to Simon about your ideas about the SDR console improvements in the continuum mode?
I'm sorry, I didn't pick all of that up. Say again. I haven't got my hearing aids in.
Okay. Have you fed back to Simon about your improvement ideas for SDR console for the continuum mode?
No, I was waiting to see. The question was, have I fed that back to Simon about SDR console? I was waiting to see what the next release was going to be, because that may well be part of it. It's a very early release that's come out.
So you're not in the test team?
I'm not an official tester, no. I just picked up on the fact it was there and I've been using it.
But please feedback.
Yeah.
About this preamplifier topic, this VLNA is using this MTF4919G
Yep.
obsolete device.
Yep.
How do we know that's the best and state-of-the-art device these days?
I have obviously tried a number of others. One of the suggestions was the 4941, which is in the plastic package. And there's no doubt that in the VLNA 9 that works better than the 4919. With the VLNA with the VLNA 9 and the 4941, I can usually get down to about 0.35 on 9 centimeters. It's difficult to get below about 0.4, 0.42 or so with the 4919. And I'm sure there are other devices to try. If I get a chance, I may well try a few more. I've had a few devices sent to me, and there was some California and Eastern Lab, the CEL devices that I tried, which promised to be very good, and actually turned out to be a disaster in that design.
Hello, sorry. I sit in long. I not see how much sun noise 10 gigahertz. 3 meter dish, sun noise, small noise. Please repeat.
Yeah, on 23 centimeters.
No, 10 gig.
Разреши, я переведем на английский язык. Да. The question is, how, because he missed it, how much you have a moon noise and how much you have a sun noise on 10 gigs. This is this, 12 and 1 dB. Yeah.
Okay. I was asking about the sun and moon noise in 10G, that was set. But that's not with the VLNA, of course. That was just to illustrate using continuum mode.
Any other question, guys?
Any other questions? No? So thank you very much.
And I have to say thank you very much for your baby. Almost everybody from this room is using that. Even myself on many of the expeditions helped me so much to work. Everybody who was interesting. Thanks.
Okay. And then as the last presentation today, I'd like to invite PA2DW with the update on the Dwingeloo antenna, which many of us had the opportunity to see at the conference in Holland in 2018. So, thank you, it's yours.
Yes, thank you very much. And, no, I have my own system. Sorry. Yes, thank you very much, and good morning, friends. It's very nice to see you all. I'm going to give you an update on 15 years of cameras, or should I say PI9CAM. Besides my work for the IRU and other things, I also am involved in this dish as a chairman of the foundation. But normally I operate the key. If you hear PI9CAM or Morse code, it's usually me. Also some others, and any other modes, it's Jan. Because Jan is the most active person operating the dish. That must be said. Well, I will give you a short update. When we started the project 15 years ago, the negotiations with the authorities that are the owner of the dish, which is the scientific organization, NWO in Netherlands. Astron is one of their institutes, and as you know, the dish is near Astron. It was such that during the negotiations, it was found important that we would do a lot of things other than being radio amateurs. I will tell you something about the status of the instrument at this very moment. I will also tell you some usage milestones and achievements in the past years. And, well, it's too much DX. And I will tell you about some future projects. First of all, in 15 years, a lot of things have happened in the telescope. And you can imagine that maintaining such a dish is not an easy task. And we have what we call the Monday morning boys. It's a team, you can see them here. And they do standard weekly maintenance, oiling and painting and whatever. You cannot imagine, but it is necessary all. And they have also been involved in renovating several of the peripheral buildings. Beside of the dish, we have a house, the house where the original engineer, Mr. Muller, lived. We call it the Muller House. We have renovated that, and we are using that as a outbreak center for visitors, and also we have a small workshop there. And, very important, a new housing for the elevator. And you can see here, this is the new housing. It used to be some kind of a tent. I don't think any one of you have possibly seen that, but it was a green tent, free for Mother Nature to get inside. Not so good. And the elevator is important to get to the focal box of the dish. Well, Jan and I have been in there many times, and you have to be very brave. But it's important that it's maintained well and that Mother Nature is not deteriorating it. So we are very happy with the new housing. Then some cable renewals, including glass fiber from the Astron building here on the background to the dish. And that is important for many of the future projects. It was a big project to do that. 15 years of innovation. We have improved the backend, replaced the coaxial cables in 2017. Jan has discovered in the past that the cables were not functioning very well, and the builder or the reconstruction builder of the dish had made some terrible mistakes, so we had to, in the end, replace all the coaxial cables. Fortunately, Astron paid that. And the introduction of the glass fiber connection between the telescope and the various peripherals, including the Muller house. Here you see the guys making, it's all handwork, you know, and that's all done by volunteers, I must say. And sometimes we hire people, and fortunately Astron is happy to finance that. And then in the future we will improve the focus box. The focus box is a very delicate part of the instrument, and during taking out of the focus box, getting down with the elevator, etc., but especially taking it out, there are some problems with the cabling and connections. It's very delicate, and we are going to improve that. That's for the future. 15 years of usage. There are fixed users like the radio astronomy guys. Like I said, we had, during the negotiations to start using the dish, we had to agree that not only radio amateurs, but also radio astronomers, amateur radio astronomers could use the dish. Of course, radio amateurs. It was also found necessary to live stream the radio reception for, let's say, general purpose, so that it was not just a couple of guys using that dish, but it was available for everybody. That's one of the key factors. The dish is there for everybody. And, very important, education. As we said during the discussion about 23 centimeters, it's important to educate people to understand technology of microwaves. And the dish is, well, a very practical example. So we take schools there and show them the technology, hoping that for the future they will choose for technology. So education is really one of the key issues for us. And of course, the public. The dish is not only for us, it's also for the public. So demonstrations to the public, and in summertime, it is very busy with lots of visitors. 15 years of radio astronomy. We have done some astronomical observations, continuously scanning various radio sources, like this. Of course, the sun, and the Cassiopeia, the blue one, you can see here. Taurus A, Cygnus A, they produce very nice signals, and by moving the dish along these sources, you can see the increase in noise very clearly. By the way, you see some dishes here, and the more dishes that will get there, the nearer we are to the end of my presentation. But it also indicates that talking about the future, it has also some meaning. I will tell you about that after the end. The occultation of the Crab Nebula. This picture shows it rather good. So the moon noise and the Crab Nebula noise and the moon passing, you can see very clearly that they were shifting over each other. The small negative points are the checkpoints to go to cold sky to see if we are really receiving the noise from the Crab Nebula. Pulsar observations, including the Crab Pulsar, and the Poor Man's Pulsar project. This is a typical project of Hannes, but Jan is very actively in that, and also with the dish doing the first experiments, of course, but he's doing it at home as well. But it's good to test it first in the dish to see if it works. Here you see the pulsar being registered. Observing galaxies and the 25 centimeter hydrogen line in the Milky Way and Andromeda. We have done some measurements in the Milky Way, and then you can clearly see that we are on a moving dish. The Milky Way is rotating, so you see the Doppler shifts between the various elements of the Milky Way. And we are on the outside skirts of the Milky Way. It's very thrilling to see that yourself when you measure that. We also did some VLBI experiments by connecting the Dwingelo dish, Westerbork. Westerbork is, well, a little bit more than these row of dishes. Hint, hint. And the Jodrell Mark II dish, which is now under the leading of the previous director of Astron, Mike Garrett. So this project connected these three dishes together. And it resulted in some very nice measurements. And SETI is also very important for us. Like I said, Mike Garrett, the previous director, always said when there was an exoplanet discovered, okay guys, put the dish there and listen. Well, we didn't always do that, didn't we, Jan? But, but when we did it, we had nothing. But, well, maybe one day, maybe one day we get an answer. I'm not sure if we really like that, but it could happen. Of course, and that's the most important part for you guys here, 15 years of radio amateurs. Of course, number one is moon bounce. We are fond of moon bounce. But actually, working with the 25-meter dish is sometimes, how to say, I wouldn't say boring, but it's always loud. Our own echoes are 20 dB over 9. So we are always looking for new challenges. Anyway, what we did, we commemorated the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and we bounced the heartbeats of Neil Armstrong during his first steps on the moon. Jan did that, and it was very thrilling to do that. The lunar landing EME SSTV party, just recently we did that, and at home I received a QSL card from KB2SA. I hope he's looking. Your card is on the way back now, and he was very happy to receive the SSTV signals with his very small dish. I think it was a 2.4-meter dish. So that is possible. That is possible if you have a big dish like this, that you can do that sort of funny things. Of course, EME contesting. We try to be in every big contest at least one day. It's a bit of a problem because nowadays most of the operators also like to operate at home. So we have to split it up, one day at home, one day at Dwingelo. But we have done it on 6 centimeters, 9 centimeters, 13, 23, 70, and also on 2 meters. On 2 meters, the dish doesn't work very well. It's like, well, you could say, a very well maintained 8 Yagi station. That's all sort of level. So it's more fun operating on these bands, especially on 23 centimeters. The dish is actually made for the 21 centimeter hydrogen line, so on 23 centimeters, it performs very well. And what we did recently is very funny. We moon bounced a LoRa message. I'm not sure if you know what LoRa is. I'll explain briefly. But it was a record distance in 2021. We did that. And LoRa, something more about LoRa. LoRa is actually, well, there's a bit of a discussion if it means long range or low range. At least what we did, we bounced the signal of the moon. So we definitely used this Wi-Fi on the long range. So can you do that? Yes, you can, but you need a 25-meter dish. And then it works. You actually can send the signals of the small Wi-Fi to the moon and receive the echoes. That's thrilling, that's fun. And our first experiments have been used to map the moon surface. We did that before with another system, and we will be using this small LoRa system to expand the possibilities to scan the moon surface, to make, let's say, as a kind of a radar, a map of the moon surface. It doesn't work very well, does it? 15 years of radio amateurs. Well, in space technology, we have been doing some work with satellites. We decoded the OP-SAT beacon, and we got a certificate for that from ESA. We observed the Indian and Israeli moon landing, and as you know, the Indian moon landing was a bit rough. We actually were witnessing the crashing. I don't know if it's fun, but we have some nice recordings of that. And we contribute to the rescue of some satellites. The Triton-1, S-Star, Inspire, UNSW, ECO. And this is something which is a bit difficult with regards to the political side, because transmitting to these satellites is, well, actually, it's not allowed due to international legislation. So we are trying to find a solution for that, because we want to help them, and these satellites ask us, can you send a pulse to the satellite because it is out of orbit or something else, or it's off, and can you turn it on for us, please? We would like to do that, but well, it's not allowed at this moment. We are working on that, so let's hope it will be possible in the future again. But we have done that. in the past. And we contributed to the Kicksat 2 and AMSAT Oscar 109 rescue sessions. 15 years of radio amateurs also means we have been involved in the Longyang 2 satellite experiment, the satellite flying to the dark side of the moon. So they made some pictures of the dark side of the moon, telemetry and VLBI, and we recorded that. And we made a nice publication in Nature Communications and briefly in Science. We were mentioned in Science doing this. Yes, this particular satellite, we're making pictures of the dark side of the moon, and that is, well, actually the only place where you can make a picture showing the moon and the shadow of the moon on the Earth. This is a more detailed picture. You can see the shadow of the moon on the Earth. So here, they were experiencing an eclipse. This is a very nice picture, I think. 15 years of radio amateurs. Of course, we had the EME 2018 conference in Egmond aan Zee, and of course, an excursion to the dish was a part of it. And here you see the group in 2018. For the radio amateurs, the EME conferences are the way to get in touch with the community of the EMEers, of the radio amateurs. And another thing, the UCARA conference, that is the environment where we talk to radio astronomers, amateur radio astronomers, but also professional ones. So these two conferences are very important for us. 15 years of public events means that also the king, of course, had to see the dish. Here you see the king, and he's very happy, as you can see. And here's the queen, Queen Maxima. And two of our very important volunteers. 15 years of public events means also open days. We had Chasing the Stars, open monuments, science weekends, Night of the Night, where we look in the sky, and we do that with all sorts of things during and around the telescope. You can see the people here. They are very happy, lining up to get into the dish, and there are some experiments here. 100 hours of astronomy and demonstrations to the public. Also 15 years of live streams. We do a lot of live streams in the dish, including solar eclipses measurements. Moon bouncing, we moon bounce all our activities live stream. You can also log into it and follow us when we are there, moon bouncing. Observing of meteor reflections. There is a huge garden around the telescope, and we are building an antenna there to measure meteor reflections continuously. And we have virtual tours in the telescope like here. So people can online have a look into the telescope. And that is a way to prevent that we are overcrowded, because there are absolutely enormous amount of people coming to the dish. 15 years also of education. As you can see, there are more and more dishes coming here, right? So I'm getting to the end. But the students learn about the Doppler effect. We tell them about antenna techniques. By the way, the Doppler effect, I had one student which I said, okay, you should today measure the distance to the moon. Well, he was ready with that in 5 minutes. Sending a pulse, measuring the time, and then, okay. Then I said, now you should measure or calculate the speed of the moon orbiting around the Earth. And that kept him busy the rest of the afternoon. Because he had to work with the Doppler effect. And he quickly found out, yeah, well, there are several movements. The moon is moving towards or from or towards the Earth. We have to find out. It's moving around the Earth. We want to know how quickly that is, but also the Earth is rotating, of course. So it's a complex thing. And it was about 1.5 pages of mathematical formulas. And he came out with some measurements to a US station, first on our own echo, and then to a US station. That's a different Doppler shift, and then you can see, you can extract What is the movement of the moon? Does anybody know how fast the moon rotates around the Earth? With which speed? You will be amazed. Hell, you know that, of course. Wow. 1 kilometer per second. 1 kilometer per second. Can you imagine this huge ball, 1 kilometer per second? It's scary, right? Well, he found out. Well, we tell the students about antenna techniques, how narrow beamed is a dish, for instance. That's very interesting. And that is why 23 centimeters is so important for us, and this dish is important for us to teach young people. We let them measure the 21 centimeter hydrogen line. It works very well. With our 23 centimeter equipment, that works fantastic. Measuring the speed of the Andromeda Nebula. That's also one of the projects they can do at our telescope. They can observe pulses, and they can hear pulses. And like I said, measuring the distance from Earth to Moon with EME. 15 years of back office. I think we are well organized. Maybe even now and then too well organized. We have a lot of administration things to do, of course, official things, because we are obliged to make reports, and annual reports and financial reports, etc. We have computer infrastructure to do with internal education. If we have people doing demonstrations, they have to tell the real story. And also, if they operate the dish, we do operator trainings. I mean, it's very important that they observe the rules and the safety rules, of course. We have the maintenance and research and development, like we have the Monday guys, but also on Tuesdays there was a lot of research and development. Jan is one of the part of that group, and I hope that the Tuesday group will be more active again. There are projects coming up. And we have the user committee. So what do we use, what we do with the telescope and what we don't. Public relations, of course, the website and internal publications. The dish is a very important object for tourists in the region. We have to, we have to do publications to show off what we are doing. And of course, back office means safety first. There are rules, and in the beginning it was even worse. I mean, when we started, we found lots of bolts and nuts on the ground, and they all come from above. So we had to wear helmets, and we had a safety area. It's better now, but of course still we have to be careful. Sometimes people put their children on the rails of the dish when we are operating to make a picture. So you also always have to be careful that there are not stupid people coming and doing. It's a big dish with lots of risks. And what about the next 50 years? Well, first of all, the question is, are we going to do business as usual? Well, yes, of course, because the telescope is alive and kicking. It's being restored, as you've seen in previous presentations by Jan. There was a lot of work. But what we will do, we will focus on these things: radio astronomy, radio amateurs, education, public activities, and outreach. And outreach can be anything which is beneficial for the dish. Anything which is beneficial for the dish is okay, which is beneficial for commercial purposes or private persons is not okay. So this is what we are going to do in the future. And one cliffhanger. We will change the name of our foundation. Because if you say cameras to people, they say, well, cameras, what's that? But if you say, that's the radio telescope Dwingelo, then they go, oh, yeah, that, I know that, yes. And cameras has too much in it from a personal thing, because it's C.A. Muller Radio Astronomy Station. And actually, we want to make it more general. So more general means Stichting, which means foundation, Radio Telescope Dwingelo, in short, SRD. We haven't completely decided, but something like this it will be. And for us, it's important that we also will have a new call sign. PI9 CAM is a hell of a thing to key on CW. But that's not so important. But if we change this, we also have to change that. And it's too much of PA0 CAM, the original engineer. So it will be PI9 CAM, changing into, well, either PI9 RD, PI9 DR, or PI9 DT, Dwingelo telescope. We have not decided. So, but if you hear a PI9 call sign and it's very loud, it's probably us. And you have to listen very carefully. Your call text 3 will not help you. Yes, so as you see, I come to the end of my presentation, and this row of dishes refers to, well, of course, the end of my presentation, but also to Westerbork. Westerbork is a range of 14 telescopes, and Westerbork is being put out of operation. They are using one telescope, sometimes two, but they are thinking about closing it down entirely. Yeah. We've been asked to think about that. Of course, we will not incorporate that in our current foundation, but there might be a new foundation, and then we use 14 dishes. Then we are even more allowed. Oh, well, I'm not going to speculate about that, but there's a question about it. Okay. I thank you very much, and I say congratulations to ourselves, to Jan and the team, everybody, and thank you for your attention.
Any questions? No? Over there.
Yes, I'm sorry, one from chat from Peter G3 LTF, and if you can in some next contest use 13 centimeters, because it can improve activity on that band. He knows that it's a lot of work for you, but asking if it's possible.
Yes, I can assure Peter that we are working on that. We are actually, I'm not sure how fast, but very, very soon we will be active on 13 centimeters, but also on 9 centimeters. I look at Jan, well, maybe. Yeah? A bit longer maybe, but 13 is in the pipeline very short, so he can rest assured. Any other questions? I thank you very much.
Great, thank you again. And now Zdeněk will be talking about...
No, I just only have one comment. If Jan will be able to run a 13 centimeters, because we have now 2 RRL microwave windows. We have the end of the August, and then second one we have in September. So that I think that everybody who has the little bit good tropo setup can to work the PA9 CAM very easily via the moon on 13 centimeters. So it will be good challenge. So please think about a little bit. Okay, thank you.
And now, please don't leave, because we are going to vote for the next EME conference to take place. So Zdeněk, please.
So, first of all, let me say thank you very much for all presenters. I think that in the last Saturday and today, we saw so many ham radio activities. Personally, I can say that I know how much time consuming is everything what are you doing, even to prepare the presentation and present your results and your ideas here in front of the auditorium is always time consuming thing. And personally, I had so many very new and very interesting things. Even the workshop, which was organized by Charlie and Manfred Friday evening, was very interesting, and I hope that it inspires so many of you to even to just try to receive the 47 gigahertz with the sun noise or with the moon noise. So it's always the very pity thing on the end of the conference is coming. I have to say thank you very much. I have to wish all of you the safe trip to home. And on the end of the conference, we are usually voting for a new place, which will be held the conference after 2 years. I have to ask if somebody here in the auditorium is ready to make an offer for that. Al, please. No. Come on, Al. If you want to make a conference, you have to be fresh, ready, young, flexible. And make an offer very clearly. Perfect.
This is really in response to your request. When I came here, I was not planning to propose running the next conference in Trenton area, but I was asked or told that there wasn't any one who were making offers. So I said, well, we can do it if you'd like. And I understand, even though they didn't jump up here like I did, that the Comras group is also wants to do the conference. Is that true? Oh, no response. Oh, yes, okay. Yes?
This is
So yes, this is a similar position that I took. So you may want to get up here and talk about the trades or what have you. I thought about, last ran the conference in 2004. N2UO was co-chair of that, and we had the support of the Mount Airy VHF Society, who is still very active. I feel reasonably certain if I go back, Mark doesn't live in the area anymore, but I feel reasonably certain that the Mount Airy group, the Pack Rats as they're known, would support the conference. I have access as a professor at the College of New Jersey, a long-term professor, have access to the facilities there. I don't see a problem in using their facilities. That means we would get classrooms, and if we decided to, we could use their services, for instance, to run the banquet and that sort of thing. They have all those type of conference services there, and we can probably get that at a very economically attractive value in terms of things that are available in the area, because you want to have something that is of interest to you. Bring your spouses and your family. You know, it's not just us coming to the conference. And the area where we are, we're very close to Princeton. Haven't talked to Joe. Joe is retired since the 2004 conference, and he's moved, so he's in basically in a retirement community now. But I feel that Joe would also support the conference, and there are others. But in terms of the areas, there's a number of places. There's what's called Grounds for Sculpture. It's literally an international location covering art related to sculptures and beautiful grounds, and you can spend the day there by itself. So that we could probably arrange in terms of tour, that activity there. There's further away, the Grounds for Sculpture are literally like 15, 20 minutes away from the college. They're very, very close. There's another outstanding facility called Longwood Gardens, but that's further away. It would take a significant amount of driving, more like the tour that was run here. But those are a couple of things. On the technical side, we have a United States, I'm not sure if it's designated as a park, but a center. This deals with Edison. Edison's factories and all his works have been preserved, and very interesting trip if you're interested in technology and science, and that had been renovated only a few years ago, so that could be another activity. And I can start thinking of more. There's the 60-foot dish that was originally used at the site of Project Diana. That is now the site of a place called Info Age, which has, again, historic, a bunch of historic centers for like radio, computers, that sort of thing set up. And that could be an interesting visit. The college itself, also right at TCNJ, we have a museum. Originally, Sarnoff Labs, this is RCA's headquarters for many years, housed material that related to David Sarnoff, I don't know if it's the right word, I guess he's kind of their founder. Certainly was responsible for it. So we have a museum that has a lot of his artifacts and related to the history of RCA, and that's also on campus. I didn't mention that in the past, and I don't see any reason, we have also laboratory facilities, so things like network analyzers, noise figure meters, things like that, so we could do testing there at the college and run sessions, measurement sessions that we did not do here, but that is very feasible and another activity. One of the things that is different, I don't want to go on here because I'll take up the whole time, excuse me.
It's okay, that's
I tend
okay.
to get carried away sometimes, and I start thinking of possibilities and options, but today organizing a meeting isn't like it was in 2004. You can spread that meeting across. In other words, you can have conference via Zoom or whatever particular virtual media you like. I happen to use Zoom a lot, but there are a number of others that are available. So you could set up a committee, and I would welcome, like, if Comras or the PA group, I don't know what's the right word to use here, would be interested in, for instance, doing the talks. So would organize the talks. There's no reason that the talks need to be organized in Trenton. We could look at the major activities of running the conference and try and break that up so it all wouldn't fall to the local group, and put the conference together that way. So you have a committee that is not just located in the Trenton area or New Jersey area, but makes use of members across the spectrum of locations. And if I could have some understanding of support, for instance, that would be great, because that would make this easier to do, and we would spread apart the responsibilities of bringing the conference. And I think I'm going to stop at that particular point, unless there's some questions. Bad sign, no questions.
So, okay, no questions about that? So we had the clear offer from Al. It means the first candidate is New Jersey. And I have another conditional offers with if Al is not able to organize it, we can do it. The one of them you can see behind me on the table, as from Guy F to Charlie Tango, that he has organized a group which can to held the next conference somewhere in north part of the Spain, in Basque. There are two very nice cities, San Bernardino and Bilbao. So there are two cities. Sorry?
I believe it's a mistake. Probably it's Basque Country, but in the French area.
Ah, okay. So the Basque Country, yeah, there is a front of the hills and behind the hills. Okay, probably the French group will be organizing in the Basque, say under the Pyrenees hills, somewhere from the French side. I know very well the Basque side behind the hills in the Bilbao, because it's my favorite city in Spain. Okay, so this is the conditional offer from the GI. And then we have also the conditional offer from Jan, that the Dwingelo is ready to organize it. I don't know now if we can to vote about, because we have just one clear offer. I want to do that. And two conditional offers. And I don't think that we don't have enough. So another question, is it here in the room sitting somebody who is able to say now, I am able to organize 2024? On the chat, check if somebody can to offer clearly, I am able to organize 2024 EME conference, International EME conference. Not yet. So that give them, let's say, 2 minutes. We still have a time. Hey guys, don't sleep there. We are writing your offers, clear offer. I am able to do that. We have just only one from Al. Everybody switch off and disconnect connection, yeah? Expect that, expect that. So, Al, I have to tell you that you are very close. I'm not complaining because I will just stop over during my business trip, so it will be very nice. Václav? Nobody? No any other clear offer? I want to or I am able to? Nothing. Okay, so, yeah? Please, do it. Please do it, Dan. Yeah, sure, we are between friends.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's great that Al, again, for us, is ready to do the job, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, Al. But on the other hand, it is not fair. And as he said it himself, I mean, he is ready to do it because there is nobody else. So actually, to really be fair, we have 3 conditional offers. Not only one, he was maybe the first offering it.
Absolutely feel same.
So I feel for myself, and I only can talk from my feelings, but I feel it's not fair having Al to do that. Full stop. So now, on the other hand, of course, I feel I would like to go to a nice place. So somebody needs to do it. I would love to do it, but nobody comes to Switzerland because it's so expensive. See? Yeah.
Can we define this nice place to be such where the beer is good?
Where beer is good, yeah, that's not a bad idea. But now, no, that was my comment. I think really we have 3 conditional offers, not only one. So maybe we can vote on the conditional offers, and then there is a condition behind it. They need to go home and make sure they really can do it.
Sure.
Dan, we are not too far away from each other. And I just had an idea. I mean, 1 meter, 1.5 meters. I just had an idea that crossed my mind. We could do that in the area of Austria, Germany, and Switzerland, of course. Bodensee. And I also thought it might be interesting to have it coincidence with Friedrichshafen. A week later, week before, which makes it possibly more attractive for other people to come.
You mean June?
Hmm?
You mean June?
That will be June, yeah?
It's, okay, So
No, it's
depends on your
just an
offer.
idea that crossed my mind. What's your view?
Well, yeah, okay. Well, you know, it is. I'm willing to help, of course, and but it is, of course, not prepared. So we would really have to do some work on that to really find out. And that, what I don't like if there are too many people involved, because then organization gets out of hand. So there must be really a nucleus of people in charge and willing and ready to spend the time. So as long as we don't have that, it's all vague.
Maybe we should keep it in mind, prepare it next time, the next meeting.
I started looking at this from a different point of view when Stan came to me, and I said, where is a place that we can travel? Because frankly, I look at these things, I don't want to go to the same place every year, be honest with you, even no matter how great it is, you want to see different places. And if I had my choice, I'd say we should have the next one in Japan. Been expecting that for a while, but it hasn't happened. Australia would be great, but those tend to be expensive. We want to have something that we can attract people. One of the advantages of having it in the States is it would attract, hopefully, in more North American attendees. However, if we look at what is inexpensive, or I shouldn't say in travel, I have to say that. I was thinking that maybe running a conference in Iceland would be nice. Now, we don't have a population there, but Dan, you've got a lot of experience setting up the expeditions, finding locations in places like that. Could you know, this is a matter of putting a committee together and getting people to work together. If you could find a hotel, a place that we could hold it, then I think we could get together, and because there's a lot more than just finding that hotel. Then we got to get someone who would take over the responsibilities of publicity. So we need to get a publicity committee, but that doesn't have to be you. We can get a group to say, we're going to handle the publicity. And then we could get another group to look at the other aspects, like the program. That's a big thing, organizing the program, getting the program published, those activities. We get another group. That group, these groups don't have to be in the place where the conference is being run. Not today, not with the ability we have to get together and have virtual meetings on a regular basis. So I was thinking that Iceland might be a nice place. Someone said that it was expensive. I don't know if we can find a hotel or a place, but if that's a place, I'd certainly be willing to help out, make this work.
Okay, we had some other idea. We had something from Dan, but how to say it? From my personal view, somebody has to take responsibility. Responsibility under his name, under his call sign. This is what I say. You have. This, yeah, no comment about it. You already says clearly, me, Alan Katz, K2UIH, I am taking responsibility to organize 2024 conference. That's absolutely clear for me. And sorry to say, guys, I don't want to hear, I would like, if, something, maybe, no. I would like to hear clearly, because I am now taking responsibility, and if I am taking responsibility, I am do that for 100%. So I have for myself, I have just one clear offer from Al. And I am not able to say, let's say, to vote that somebody will organize it, maybe somewhere, no. We have a clear offer, so that Alan says we are able to make it in New Jersey. So I am able to just say VR voting. Question from nothing? I am just able to ask, who is for and who is ready? For New Jersey. Okay. I think that it's more than 80% of the people which are presented here in the room. So our congratulations.
There's publicity, there is the program, so we can do it. And I'm saying I'll walk, but I'd like to, just like we've had people here, go home, let me know in a week or two if you're interested in having your group handle the program. That's a major activity of this. We could even break things up further in terms of how we handle the program. I'd like to have another group handle the publicity, to work on getting the publicity out, attracting people, figuring out how we can get a greater turnout than we've ever had at the conference of people who are seriously interested in EME, and I'll say that on the higher bands, okay? Because if you open this up, I'm not anti 2 meters, I can get on 2 meters, but if you make this a conference that covers everything, you're going to get swamped. I mean, we're a minority that operate on the microwaves, and including 70 centimeters in that. But I think we should keep the conference focused that way, just from a point of view of being able to focus on the areas we want. I'm going to stop there, but please think about this and email me or let me know if you'd like to do that. Dan, you've got a lot of ideas. What would your group like to do? Do a special program on de-expeditions at the next conference?
Okay. So, next conference, 2024, will be held in New Jersey, organized by AL, K2UIH. It will be exactly 20 years after the conference which we had there in the Princeton. And so it's the same like here in Praha, 20 years after the 2002, where we were in Praha. And I have a just last sentence. Thank you very much for your participation. Again, I wish a safe trip to home. And game is over. Thanks. To je přesně, Láďo, to, co já jsem...